All right, everyone, we'll go ahead and kick off and get started. Thank you for joining us for our March Centering Servingness webinar series offered through HSI Initiatives and Faculty Affairs. I hope you all are enjoying your respective spring breaks. I was sharing that in our household, we have 3 different spring breaks happening, none of which align. So it's been a puzzle for us for sure. I'm Judy Marquez-Kiyama, Associate Vice Provost for Faculty Development here at the University of Arizona, and I'm always excited to welcome you on behalf of Faculty Affairs and HSI Initiatives. We are joined today by faculty from the School of Nutritional Science and Wellness, who will share several ongoing initiatives focused on strengthening nutrition and food-related educational and basic needs infrastructures to increase capacity for underrepresented students, minoritized students, in the related disciplines of nutrition and food systems. Their efforts highlight the ways in which servingness can be enacted by addressing basic needs. Servingness, as I have shared before, is a concept developed by Dr. Gina Garcia and that captures the ways in which faculty and staff engage in efforts that honor the cultures and the lived experiences of Latino, Latina, Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and underrepresented students and communities. Before introducing our speakers, I'd like to start off by respectfully acknowledging that the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of Indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the Orem and the Yaqui. Committed to diversity and inclusion, the university strives to build sustainable partnerships and relationships with sovereign Native nations and Indigenous communities through education offerings, partnerships, and community service. The goals of our webinar series, as I've noted before, are threefold. By spotlighting current scholarship and current projects, we offer examples of the rich ways in which servingness is enacted by faculty and staff across the institution. We invite others, both on campus and nationally, to learn about and engage in these efforts, and we build knowledge. Each month, we address the question, what next steps are needed to build institutional capacity around HSI servingness? Our speakers today include Dr. Melanie Hingle, who's an associate professor in the School of Nutritional Sciences and Wellness. Dr. Hingle is a nutrition scientist, public health researcher, and a registered dietitian nutritionist with experience and training in medical nutrition therapy, health promotion, behavioral sciences, and related research methodologies. Her work is conducted at the intersection of nutritional sciences research and public health practice, where she seeks to understand predictors and consequences of behavioral risk factors associated with obesity and type 2 diabetes, and apply this knowledge to the design and the delivery of lifestyle behavioral modification interventions for children and families at risk of the diet-sensitive disease. Ashley Linares-Gaffer is an associate professor of practice in the School of Nutritional Sciences and Wellness. She's also a registered dietitian nutritionist and teaches nutrition and the life cycle and survey of careers in nutrition. Ashley also routinely works one-on-one with undergraduate students who are interested in pursuing professions in healthcare, education, foods, and industry, like food, pharmaceutical, and agriculture, to provide career advice and mentoring. In 2020, she was recognized as a fellow of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. This designation recognizes commitment to the field of nutrition and dietetics and celebrates professional accomplishments and the pursuit of lifelong learning. Dr. Jennifer Teskey is an associate professor in the School of Nutritional Sciences and Wellness. Dr. Teskey's research program seeks to elucidate neural mechanisms and dietary factors regulating weight gain associated with abnormal sleep in rodent models. Clarifying the role of orexin, and Jennifer, you can tell me if I'm pronouncing that correctly, an integrative endogenous neuropeptide in mediating weight gain due to disrupted sleep is at the forefront of her studies. An important goal of this is who is to quantify the energetic cost and temporal relationship between bouts of sleep, physical activity, and feeding. She is also working on a number of different projects, including dietary factors mitigating reduced sleep-associated obesity and the development of novel therapeutic modalities to deliver neuropeptides. Please help me welcome our guests. Throughout the process and throughout the presentation, Monique and I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A box. And as we wrap up presentations, we will invite you to unmute and share share your questions with our presentation and panelists. So thank you all for being here. Melanie, we are going to turn it over to you, and
thank you.
I will pause here.
Thank you so much, Judy and Monique, and for inviting us here today. We're really excited, just on behalf of the three of us, and you'll be hearing from all three of us. I'm going to drive the slide deck, so my colleagues will give me instructions when it's their turn to present. I'll kick us off, though, and let me share my screen. All right. And do you see that? Okay, thanks. I see Jennifer nodding, and yeah, thank you. Okay, so we are here to talk about a few different projects. We want to give you a flavor of what's happening in our school to support HSI Servingness here at UArizona, and some of our thoughts in what might happen next in terms of nutrition and food systems specifically. And we're going to give you some project examples, and we're hoping at the end we have some time to engage in a discussion. We'd love your input. All right, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to talk about two different projects that are going on. One, let's zoom out to the university right now, not in our school here, but at the entire University of Arizona. I want to discuss our Student Basic Needs Coalition, and I'm here on behalf of quite a large group. You can see them represented, and this is not even probably everybody. We've had some new people join recently. This is a group of faculty, staff, and students who first convened in, say, 2020, summer of 2020, at the behest of former student regent Anthony Rusk, who is a University of Arizona student, since graduated. And he was particularly interested in a regents level initiative to address basic needs at the three institutions in our state. And since he was here, we had the benefit of his collegiality and sort of the motivation to tie all these things together and start the work at University of Arizona. So what you hear today in this area is truly leading the other institutions, which is, we're really excited and proud to say. Our coalition is small but growing, and you're all welcome to be a part of it. And I'll give you some information in just a minute on how to do that. And we're representing, again, a lot of areas of campus, and we have, we're co-led by staff from Fostering Success in the Campus Pantry. And we have support from the Provost's office, from Hispanic Serving Initiatives office, and Cooperative Extension, several colleges, including the college that we belong to, Faculty Senate, Student Affairs Committee, and of course, student organizations as well, ASUA and GPSC. We do have funding right now from the Provost and the HSI Initiatives office. So thank you very much for that. It's been really terrific. We have an external collaborator as well from the Arizona Food Bank Network based on the topic. So what is basic needs? They're the essential resources that impact people's health and their belonging and persistence in academia and overall well-being. And this includes, but isn't limited to, food and housing, financial security, as well as equitable access to academic technologies and materials, which we realized is even more important in light of the pandemic that we're still struggling with. So the goal of our coalition is to mobilize long-term, we're very interested in long-term and sustainable institutional support and community resources to ensure that the basic needs of UArizona students are met, and helping thereby to mitigate barriers that are impeding student safety and wellness and academic success and persistence and completion. The things that the regents are interested in, which is good, and this is how Anthony made his inroads to the Board of Regents. Things that, of course, the University of Arizona as an entity, and us as faculty and staff and students are interested in, and the students themselves, of course, as well, because they're investing time and money in studying here. This gives you an idea here, this timeline of where our work started and sort of how it's continuing. So I guess April 19th, so I said 2020 is when it was formed, but I think Anthony's work preceded even our coalition work here, the groundbreaking of the work. And we've been doing it quite a while. So we formed it a while ago. there are coalitions at ASU and NAU as well, but again, ours is sort of the most robust, and we do have funding support to build out this coalition more in the next year. So you'll be hearing more from us as we kind of gain traction. We've done some benchmarking with similar institutions to understand the prevalence of food and housing insecurity across public institutions. We have built a specific survey for Arizona universities with ASU and NAU, and we did distribute that survey. I'll share just a little bit of that, but since I don't have a lot of time today, I would love to direct you to where you can find all that information on the assessment and research website. So I'll give you that information as well. And very recently, we have student focus groups that were conducted last fall, which we're still analyzing, but I'll give you just the major highlights. So in our survey of campus, and this was in spring of 2021, we had a response rate of 10.5, which is reasonable for surveys that go out, since a lot of people are surveyed a lot of times a year. And again, this is a link to here, the assessment and research website, where you can find the report. It's quite a nice report that was put together with Lucas Chaluski and the Office of the Provost, and along with other team members as well, and contributions from, I'm sure, some people who are listening here today. So thank you very much for that. It did cover the extent of need, the questions, food, housing, transportation, healthcare, academic technologies, and professional clothing, something we forget a lot of the time as a basic need. Use of resources, students' use of resources here on campus and remotely, barriers to use, perceptions of university support. And again, this is all in the context of basic needs, perceived impact on academic success, and also differences by population per people's self-disclosed race, ethnicity, gender identity. So we also conducted some focus groups, and I say we very loosely because it's a group of terrific graduate students who are working with us to help with this, and staff. And this was conducted last fall. They were undergraduate and graduate student representation, still finishing the analysis. But the topics that were explored had to do with lived experience and barriers to access, perceptions of campus efforts to mitigate food insecurity and housing insecurity, and most importantly, perhaps recommendations to improve support and to communicate resources that are out there. I'll just give you an example quote here from a student who was part of the focus groups. Let you read that. One thing as a nutrition scientist that I've realized, and I work in the area of food insecurity as well with diabetes, is that it is very taxing, cognitively taxing, to think about where your next meal is coming from. And that's one of the mechanisms by which we think it detracts from people's academic performance. It should not be any surprise that if you're worried about where your food's coming from, you're not able to perform as well on an exam. So again, super high level findings here, because I want to talk about one other project before I pass the baton. More to come. It is very clear from the survey when you read the report that a significant number of University of Arizona students have unmet basic need challenges. And students who are from systematically marginalized populations are more likely to experience insecurity in basic needs. Surprisingly, maybe, or perhaps not for those folks who work in this area, students in need did not utilize resources to help meet their food or housing insecurity challenges. And there's a lot of reasons why. Stigma remains one of the primary reasons. Others are just really kind of communication related, things that we probably can fix if we do a little bit more or different things. So there is external and internal factors that are contributing to that. So on behalf of our group, I want to just invite you to check out, we have a very basic website right now. It's nothing exciting, but it connects you to all the information that I think is relevant here. Our coalition leaders I've named here. Again, the director of the campus pantry and of fostering success, Bridget and Danny, are helping lead the way. Please, if you want to take action sooner, you can support your students. You can always do this. Whether you're a staff person or faculty, for instance, have a syllabus statement about basic needs. We have examples that we can give you. And we're having a symposium this fall in October. If you would like to learn more or be invited, let me know or let Bridget and Danny know. And special thanks to these folks at the bottom here because they helped pull this part together. So, okay, I'm going to transition. I'm going to have you zoom in now a little bit on our School of Nutritional Sciences and Wellness. And I want to talk about a our University of Arizona Multicultural Scholars Program in Culinary Medicine, big long title. This is a USDA funded undergraduate training grant for students who are enrolled in nutritional sciences or food systems. And our goal with this is still to produce skilled, diverse graduates who are prepared to work at the intersection of nutrition, food, and human health. Now, as a dietitian, I have been trained to help you change your eating behaviors and help you achieve a healthier diet, right? And the training is slightly shifting now, thanks to colleagues like Ashley and efforts of dietitians in the field who are cognizant of this. But I think historically we haven't been as responsive to maybe that. I'm not going to say the topic of diversity. I think we are very responsive to that, but we don't know how to integrate dietetics with nutrition science, with sort of practical realities of what people are living day to day. So I think that there was a lot of advice that I can remember and cringe a little way back in the day, as sort of like, well, you just want to eat, have this tofu and eat this certain way. And it just wasn't responsive and it wasn't appropriate, right? So this is the goal behind our training grant, is to really help students who are in our programs integrate these skills so that they are responsive to just the breadth of humanity out there and the different circumstances, especially with regard to budget consciousness. So we're not recommending, foods that people can't afford, and that in a way that is respectful of people's beliefs, cultural beliefs, or just nutrition beliefs and food preferences. And so this is where we are tasked with and have done, and I'll give you a preview of sort of where we're at, recruiting, selecting qualified scholars, students, supporting them in meeting academic program requirements, but more than that, helping them develop these leadership competencies and professional competencies. And we do that through a variety of ways, including experiential learning and preparing them for graduate school. Our students who are eligible are those majors I mentioned in nutrition science and food systems, rising juniors. It's a 2-year program, the last 2 years of the student's program, and able to complete the program requirements, which looks something like this. So this is just a timeline of our most recent cohort, who started in 2021 and will be graduating in 23, spring 23. So they go through a few workshops, entrepreneurial leadership. They take some courses in culinary medicine that we have in our unit. They engage frequently with their advisors in targeted sessions. They participate in research experiences. They do graduate school preparation, and they have community experiences. So far, we have recruited successfully all 8 of the scholars that will be supported by this training grant. Our first 3 are almost done. They're in their final semester, and one's going to occupational therapy school, one to medical school, and one is going to be in a dietetic internship. And our 5 current scholars are about ready to start a summer research experience with UROC this summer, and to engage in their community experiences as well with partners across our community who you'll recognize, including a few here on campus. And to give you a flavor of what the best parts of the program so far per the students or per the scholars, number 1 is the ongoing support from faculty and academic advisors. One student recently shared with me she doesn't feel embarrassed to ask her questions, which is fantastic. Research is fun. So students are discovering research is fun. That's good. The community engagement has been really valuable. Seeing real world application, again, of the thing I mentioned, that was disconnected from my experience, is now here integrated for them. Definitely things to brag about on a resume, CV, entrepreneurial leadership skills, and then graduate school preparation. These folks are all bound for professional or graduate school. So I just want to conclude my part here by thanking lots of colleagues, because this, just like the Student Basic Needs Coalition, it's a lot of people who are involved in making any project successful. These are some of the folks here at University of Arizona and in our community who are making it happen, and as well as the USDA who funded this work. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ashley Limneros-Gaffer. And Ashley, just let me know when you want me to advance the slides, okay?
Thanks, Melanie. So I'll be relatively fast here, but I'm excited to share with everybody the program SOPA, which stands for Student Success by Increasing Opportunity, Participation, Awareness, and Achievement. And foundation research that is underlying this program is research done by my colleague Tanya Hodges, Dr. Tanya Hodges out of U of A Yuma, looking at students' barriers and perception of their access to different opportunities, awareness of opportunities available to them, and how that awareness of those opportunities for participation and achievement impact their progress towards graduation and completion of their four-year degree. So this is an HSI education grant program. There are three types of grants offered out of the HSI education grant program: a collaboration grant, a regular grant, and a conference grant. And the regular grant is up to $250,000 for development of a program. And this program is in year one right now, so early in the planning phase. And we have 4 years after this program. And the primary objective in this grant is to increase students' access to graduate school preparation and experiential learning opportunities to ultimately prepare them to go into the field of dietetics or healthcare upon completion of their degree program. Can you move to the next slide? So as I mentioned, the project director on this is Dr. Tanya Hodges, who's the Regional Academic Programs Director for the U of A Yuma Distance Campus. And in a minute, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Yuma campus, because I think it's really important to understand that as the pretext for this grant and why we're doing it. Co-PD, Dr. Baleshka Brenes, and she's the Director of Agriculture Programs at U of A Yuma Distance Campus. Myself, and then I did just want to mention our colleague Melissa Wyatt, who was an agent with Cooperative Extension in Yuma, and who's actually no longer with us there, but I did just want to acknowledge her contributions on the early stages of this project. Can you move forward? Okay, so just for those of you who are maybe not so familiar with the Yuma campus, the Yuma campus began in 2009, largely with brute force effort from Dr. Hodges, who continues there, expanding and really being a driver behind the work there. And you can see that in the scale of campuses, it might look pretty small. We have about just under 200 or right around 200 students, maybe a couple more now. This is as of 2020, but it's grown significantly since the campus began in 2009. And in 2016, we launched our Nutritional Sciences degree program in Yuma to meet workforce needs for nutrition and healthcare providers in the community. So U of A Yuma, 100% of the students who attend the U of A Yuma campus are transfer students. So we only offer upper division coursework and graduate coursework out of U of A Yuma, but all of the students who come into U of A Yuma transfer in from a local community college. The campus serves students in Yuma County as well as La Paz and Imperial County in California. And it's also got international status. So we can serve students living within 100 miles of the border in Mexico. And as many of you know, Yuma is very close to the Mexico border. So all of the students in this 100-mile radius around Yuma and in these different counties can attend at a discounted resident tuition rate. 73% of our students at the U of A Yuma campus identify as Hispanic, and the U of A Yuma campus has been acknowledged as a Hispanic serving institution at the campus level for quite some time. The average age of student attending U of A Yuma is 26, and you can see it's a pretty even split between males and females. And something like I mentioned is that students transfer 100% of the time, but also we have an older age student because our students are more likely to be taking time and sort of on a stop and go as they get through their four-year degree. And although many students pursue a two-year degree, four-year degree completion in Yuma is lower. So our students are coming back and sort of chipping away at this degree over a longer period of time. Can you move forward? So as I mentioned, we started our nutritional sciences program with the goal of creating a dietetics pipeline in fall 2016. And we currently have about 13 students, and you can see we've graduated. We're starting to slowly increase the number of students that we're turning out of our program. We also just launched an accredited dietetics pathway in our professional science master's degree, which students can complete in Yuma to complete their training to become a dietitian without ever leaving for that training. And we have, as in that picture, one student who completed their training in Yuma and is now a registered dietitian. And then on the right, one of our first graduate students who's exclusively completing their graduate coursework in Yuma, and upon completion of that program will be a dietitian. So what's involved in a dietetics pipeline is having an accredited undergraduate dietetics program, and also having that graduate level education and training so that students can be eligible to sit for their dietetics exam and earn their RDN credentials at the end. And so that has been what we've been slowly working towards and trying to build capacity for over these past 6 years. Okay, can you move forward? So what SOPA does is it builds more capacity for strengthening the transition for students from the community college to our upper division coursework in nutritional sciences, developing more infrastructure to enhance their experiential learning opportunities, and also delivering our coursework there, allowing us to deliver our coursework in Yuma in a more hybrid format. So students are developing more sense of community and belonging among each other, and also with faculty on the ground. So when this program was launched, the Yuma students were sections were opened in exclusively asynchronous online courses for Yuma students to enroll in. But the goal is that we move towards this stronger sense of community on the ground, where students are getting that face-to-face interaction rather than just an asynchronous online modality of learning. Okay, can you move forward? So this is a really cool graphic that I just wanted to show, and sort of how the acronym SOPA came about in relation to this idea of needing to increase students' opportunity, awareness, and achievement, and address their perceived barriers to access to opportunity and awareness of opportunity to facilitate their achievement. And so my colleagues, Dr. Hodges and Brennis, created this, and this is just a visual representation of what we mean by SOPA. So our intervention soup is our project, and we are providing students with opportunity to learn more, develop more hands-on cooking skills, develop their opportunities to practice medical nutrition therapy, and participate in other community engagement activities related to nutrition education and counseling, ultimately with the goal of them being more successful as they march towards their professional goals, whether it be graduate school or some other type of professional school or training. So can you move forward? The primary, this is pretty comprehensive, but the primary initiatives that this program is funding is one, strengthening a little bit of articulation work, strengthening our 2+2 pathways, just to make sure that all of our pathways from the community college, the lower division courses, are as many as are articulated for equivalent transfer into our program as possible. So of course, our community college partners are their own institutions, and they're constantly adjusting their associate's degree programs and their transfer pathways. And then of course, we're making curricular changes. So 2+2 pathways were established early on, but in this program, we're going back to refresh those pathways just to make sure that students can maximize the amount of work that they transfer. The second thing, as I mentioned, is enhancing more experiential learning. So a major thing that we're doing on this grant is creating a culinary lab for students at the the U of A Yuma campus, where they will be able to complete food science labs instead of doing it in their kitchen, where they might have limited access to space and to appliances and so forth. They'll be able to come into our new food lab. We're also developing a holistic teaching garden so that we can do more activities to take that food from garden to table, if you will, and develop students' food literacy and understanding of where food comes from so that they can communicate that more clearly to community members. And then, as I mentioned, they'll also be getting more experiences to develop medical nutrition therapy skills, such as nutrition-focused physical exams through our partnerships with the hospital. So we've touched on these really key areas to develop students' soft skills, but also to equip them with more of the technical skills that they need in the workforce as future dietetics professionals. Our students will also up to cohorts of 5. This is not a program like the Multicultural Scholars Program that has a lot of participant support. It's really about developing programming and curriculum to develop that long-term capacity. But we do still have cohorts of scholars going through the programming that we're developing. And so those scholars will have graduate school preparation workshops and some dietetics mentoring. And then a final thing that this grant goes to fund is that work to adapt and deliver these courses in a more hybrid format, just to make sure that instructors are being compensated for their time and that we really are moving the needle. Because something that some programs might be able to relate to, or some folks might be able to relate to, but when you start offering a new program where enrollment is low comparatively to, say, an online or main campus, it gets really it can be a slow process waiting until enrollment is high enough to warrant converting the curriculum in a specialized way for that new campus. There's a tendency to want to utilize the scalable opportunities we have. So this is to get us over the edge and invest in really truly developing hybrid format classes that are designed to be delivered for these small groups of students in Yuma. And then another aspect of the project is, as we are developing all of these hybrid courses and students are getting more on-site experiential learning, then we will have several projects that contribute to furthering an open education resource that was initiated in the culinary medicine program and that we will develop out further in the SOPA program. Next slide. Just a couple quick highlights I wanted to mention that we're really early, so we don't have a lot to share yet about the progress of the program. But a couple things are that as we were planning our culinary lab and the design for it and the vision for it, while we were writing this grant, we had senior students in Yuma in nutritional sciences who contributed to the development of the kitchen floor plan, of the concept, of the budget. And that was a really big, a very rewarding aspect of this project, was getting to involve students in it and then having those students get to know that they were a part of a project that was funded. And those students have now graduated, and several of them are in graduate school, have secured a spot in an upcoming cohort of graduate school, or are actively pursuing admission to graduate school. Another thing that is exciting is that we've been able, with support from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, to procure over $80,000 in federal surplus appliances and equipment. And that is helping our budget go a lot further, as costs have dramatically increased during COVID on stainless steel, which we need to put together a food lab. And a final other thing I wanted to mention is that just in the last year, we have had students launch a chapter of Manners, and Manners stands for Minorities in Agriculture, Nutrition, Natural Resources. I always mess up the acronym, but our students have a chapter, nutrition chapter there. And so already, by us starting to move more of our courses to a hybrid modality where they are interacting with one another, they are developing community and also enhancing those opportunities, or I don't mean enhancing, they are advancing those opportunities to connect with one another. So just getting them in the same place at the same time for some hybrid delivery courses has gone a long way in them advancing their connection with each other. I think maybe there's one more slide. Nope, that's it.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Teskey, and I'd like to tell you about two projects that have short-term goals. Really, I believe they're increasing opportunities for undergraduates, minoritized undergraduates to participate in undergraduate research with the long-term goal of increasing their belonging and their graduation. The first program is the CALS, which is the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences, ASEMS, which is Arizona's Science, Engineering, and Math Scholars Program. This is a grant that was recently funded by the USDA HSI Education Program for 4 years with costs in $250. We're primarily working, recruiting first-year students, and they continue in their second year, as well as transfer students who are enrolled in the college. Next slide, please. This grant was developed when I was an HSI fellow in cohort 3, and these you can see on the left part of the slide, Karina Rodriguez and Sandra Bernal, who are in humanities. They work with me tirelessly and diligently on this grant. And on the right side of the slide, you can see all of the partners in the ASEMS program. And these large grants are collective. Many individuals contribute pieces. Next slide. You might know that the ASEMS program is a nationally recognized program that won the Seal of Excellencia in 2019 and most recently was awarded in 2021 the Inspiring Programs in STEM from the Insight into Diversity. Next slide. The components of the ASEMS program that I think really highlight why it's successful, I'm hoping to show you here, and this slide was developed by Dr. Franco. First, CALS-ASEMS provides a personalized and a holistic suite of student services. This program is recruiting underrepresented students, first-generation students, low-income students. And we know that in CALS, this cohort is 60% of our students in STEM. So by providing culturally responsive and asset-based advising and career mentoring, we know that we will be able to retain and assist students through their process. This program has been shown to build a STEM identity by working through career exploration and promoting undergraduate research and internships. In addition, by building a structured STEM community, and this is through a student support specialist that each scholar is matched with when they come into the course, into the 2-year program. And then something organic happened that scholars that were in the 2-year program and then approached their 3rd and 4th years, they were telling us, the faculty who run the program and staff and administrators, this program is so beneficial. We want to, as students, become peer mentors. So we now have created another tier in the learning community, the peer mentors. We also provide very tailored free services. This is tutoring, it's emergency funds. There was a student who realized during pandemic, her computer died. How do we get her a computer? Immediately. I mobilized, I contacted a nonprofit. It requires contacting more people, but we got the student a computer. It could be, people in ASEMS calling financial aid and working through all of the logistics to get a student what they need. It's emergency funds for that student so they can register. It's providing graduate student preparation, financial aid support. So all of these services really are, we want to measure these 3 objectives in the bottom of my slide here. The 3 main objectives of our grant is to increase academic achievement and persistence through this program. The second objective is to increase sense of belonging. Anecdotally, having worked in this program for 3 years, I can tell you biggest barrier to students, I would say, thriving and continuing is that they don't feel like they belong there. There's a fear of even contacting faculty members. So this is a hurdle that we know we have to address, developing their identity. And the final is increasing the interest in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and math. And that is building career capital, because students tell us, yes, it's great that you're addressing all of these professional development pieces, but if I am not seeing, if I am not identifying a pathway to a viable career, I don't know why I'm doing this. So when the students tell us things, and we're meeting with them so regularly, we are, as individuals working in this ASEMS program, we're able to tailor to find the various pieces that we think will help that specific student, which we believe is the success. And the success I'm referring to is we, through this program in our college, have been able to close the retention gap between minoritized students and their non-minoritized peers. Next slide. The second program that I want to tell you about is called CURE, which stands for Course-Based Undergraduate Research Experience in Nutritional Sciences. Next slide. Many of you probably know that CUREs have been shown in published literature to reduce the barriers to students participating into research and to facilitate their student success. I like to think of this cartoon on the left. I like to think of it of the student in the yellow, and they have a path preventing them from getting undergraduate research experiences. And many times they don't know the puzzle pieces that go into this. And there's also unspoken rules. I've learned that I'm a gatekeeper as a faculty member who allows students into my lab. They have to contact me, they have to interview, we go through training, and that can be very intimidating. And students have said the first hurdle is sending the email. The second hurdle is having the faculty member actually respond. Next, or advance. Oh, go back. There should have been a click. Oh, yeah, okay. So you can see I put this very crude red rectangle. What I believe CUREs do is it erases the barriers and it allows students to enroll in a registered course during the school day where they can do a research experience. And then on the right, you're seeing all the benefits that have been published in the literature of CUREs. Next slide. CUREs also have benefits for faculty. Sometimes I think, faculty's instructors, we feel like this cartoon on the left where we're trying to balance so many things. We have so many roles. And for many of us, balancing our teaching and our research, how we allocate our time, is always weighing on our minds. Because CUREs allow a faculty member to work on their research in the context of while teaching a class, it merges the efforts. The published literature shows that this can help with promotion and tenure. It allows researchers to publish on their teaching and their research in the same publication, and it's allowing the students in the class to be data collectors. Next slide. So I did not come up with this CURE on my own. I was smart enough to know that I needed a very strong partner, and my strong partner is Jennifer Ravia. She's an associate professor of practice in the School of Nutritional Sciences and Wellness, and she's an award-winning instructor known for her beauty and her way of engaging students in experiential learning. So I'm the researcher, and I knew if we were going to deliver instruction about how to do research, I felt that I really needed to partner with an expert. We were able to do this because we applied for the CURE Institute, which I'm showing here in the middle. And this provides funds for individuals to learn how to develop a CURE. So on the right side of your screen, you're seeing this approach. It's called the backward design. So in normal classes in the blue, we establish our goals. And then after we determine our goals, we figure out what are the activities and assessments that we're going to have in our course. The CURE has research goals, which I'm trying to represent with the red arrows. And the intersection between those research goals and the teaching goals are I think, one of the hardest things we had to do, because that intersection is where we have to build our activities and assessments to make for a successful merge of the research and the teaching. Next slide. So we're currently, right now, Jen Rabia and I were teaching for the first time our CURE course, and I'm showing you our learning outcomes on the left. And to give you a flavor of what we're doing is, I, in my research, am addressing how environmental noise exposure is reducing sleep, contributing to behaviors that increase our risk for chronic disease. And I'm trying to understand molecular mechanisms. So the students, what they are learning to do is be both researcher and study participant. They're learning how to measure their noise exposure with smartphone apps, the relationship between how that noise exposure will affect their behavior, meaning their sleep, objectively measured by a wrist-worn device, subjectively measured by surveys. They're measuring their physical activity by wrist-worn devices. They're measuring their calorie intake by 2 methods. And purposefully in this design, because many of these students are in nutritional sciences and other colleges, they're learning different how you can measure one endpoint with multiple measures, and they're seeing the pros and cons of those measurement devices. In addition, we know that noise exposure affects sleep partially through mitigation and of the integrated stress response. So the students are going to measure the integrated stress response proteins from their urine and saliva. And the reason why we're doing readily available biofluids is because we do not currently have a biomarker for noise exposure. We have a lot of data from animal models, but this is the first time these measures and these proteins have been measured in people. So what the students, I think, are seeing is that, yes, we can plan studies and we can vet data. Right now, we can vet how we're going to measure our data. But when they go to do the real data collection, they see that there's issues, there's problems. And so I think they're really getting to see in a real, true research setting how we have to pivot, how we have to change things. And then later, they're going to be analyzing the data. They're going to be comparing the results that they're getting to the research. And then we're going to work on developing posters. So if anybody is interested, and this is the first year, I should mention, we also are measuring sense of belonging, and we want to see how cures and participation in cures is affecting how they think about, their participation in their, the rest of their career. We're hoping that cures, because it hasn't been reported in the literature, how are cures directly impacting the student's success. So if anybody's interested in cures, please reach out to us. If you're interested in ASEMS, I am one person among a large team. So, and that was my last slide.
Thanks. Judy, you want to take it away? We were hoping for a... Yep.
Oh my gosh, thank you all so much. This was incredible. And all of the projects and the work that you all are doing truly embodies this notion of servingness and institutionalizing servingness. So thank you for giving us such a glimpse of both the systemic barriers and the factors at play, right, that impact students' basic needs, but then also on an individual level, how we can work with and care for students in ways that are culturally responsive, caring, and then also combine research and teaching. So, I mean, you all covered like everything. This was incredible. So what questions do you all have? Now's the time that we'll turn it over to our audience participants. And Monique and I will watch the chat in both the Q&A box. We have about 5-10 minutes for a few questions. And hopefully to our presenters, you were watching the chat throughout, because you got lots of shout outs and love.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Maybe I could make a comment while everybody's thinking of other questions. So I always learn things when I hear my colleagues present. So really impressive, Ashley and Jennifer. Some themes I was noticing across what we were all talking about included experiential learning, that seemed to be really like one that stuck out to me. And then the student-driven aspect of involvement, however students are involved in the learning, it's really kind of led by students in a lot of ways across our work, and this idea of belongingness. So I don't know if either Jennifer or Ashley, if you want to talk about any of those things, or anyone in the audience too, but that's what stuck out to me. I don't know about what you guys think.
I couldn't agree more. For me, belonging, the parallel is the confidence. And when you work with the students and you see them, the trepidation at the beginning, and then you can see their entire demeanor change, it's really rewarding. And then you can hear their talk across themselves, that when they're like, we're doing it, we're doing research. I mean, it's pretty neat to hear their excitement as they're succeeding. So it's great.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think that experiential learning opportunities really, not only do they just enhance learning overall and allowing students to apply what they're learning in the classroom, trying it out, reflecting, having that aha, but also it creates those opportunities for them to interact usually more personally with, whether it be their community sites, other professionals, faculty, peers. So I think they're really the conduit for relationship building, and they provide that platform and that space for that to happen. And that's just another reason why I think experiential learning is critical for servingness, because it really is addressing the students' academic outcomes and some non-academic factors as well.
Thank you, Melanie,
So,
for a great question.
This is Dr. Tanya Hodges, and all of you did amazing. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, did you have any issues, any of you, or any challenges trying to get students to participate? So I'm thinking of the Scholars Award. Did you have like hundreds of people applying to try to get into your program, or what was the participation like?
Yeah, I can speak specifically to that. Thank you, Tanya. And we didn't have hundreds of students, unfortunately, and we really went out there and I think beat the bushes, and but maybe went about it in I don't know if we went about it the optimal way. So we had maybe 12 applicants for 3 positions or 5 positions or 4 positions, however many the first year. The second year, I felt we had a little bit more traction because we had the first cohort going, and we had those students reach out to their networks and to their peers. And I think that peer-to-peer interaction made a difference. And so we had a few more applicants that next round, but still not very many. I think some of it's because we limited our recruitment to nutrition and nutrition food system students, which is about 800 or so.
Thank you.
Guada, I know you also posed a question. Would you like to share?
Sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. When Jennifer talked about the CALS-ASEMS partnership, and you mentioned asset-based academic and career advising and mentorship. I'm curious as to how you conceptualize that and how you put it in practice. These terms are, very useful and very good to have specific, concrete examples as to what they mean. So that's what I'm curious about. Thank you.
How I think it comes out is, or how we enact it, is that really telling and talking with the students is when they're talking to us, they're usually saying, this happened. How do we do something? And instilling them that they have already gone through so many, they've succeeded in so many ways that they have the tools. And it's so, I think it's getting the students to really believe that they can overcome whatever it is and that they already have it. It's not something that I'm going to give to them. Because when I hear the situations, the scenarios that the students have been through, it's quite sobering. And many times programs, the students think they have deficits, And we are really pushing that, no, in mentoring, it's reminding students that they already have it, they already have the skills, and building the concrete examples. And I think by getting to know the students, when we have so many conversations, because we know their backgrounds, we can give them, oh, but remember, you use this to get through this. Perhaps you could use that same strategy to get through something else. And Dr. Kielbaugh also has an inclusive mentoring workshop that I went through, and that I encourage all faculty, staff, instructors to really do that, because that is what you just said is something that needs to be addressed on a, I would say, institutional level.
Thank you.
I think that's a good toss over to Casey. But I also want to make sure, there was an anonymous question in the chat. I know, Melanie, you probably responded, but I wonder if it's worth putting the link also, not just in the Q&A box, but in the chat to some of these resources so that folks can access the campus pantry should they need it. So we'll be sure to do that as we wrap up the webinar.
Thank you. Yeah, I did answer, but yeah, I'll be happy to provide some of that. Do you want me to put the link in chat?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
So this is Casey Kielbaugh. Thanks for the shout out, Jen. I was wondering how you guys think that these amazing programs can be scaled. You all described these fantastic programs that had funding and are very high touch. So how do we do this for everybody? I love the work that's happening. I'm involved in a number of programs as well that are funded and very high touch. And I would love to just hear how we make them grow.
I could go first. Our program, I think, I have a lot of hope for that scalability, because the investment is not so much in the individual participants as it is in developing the infrastructure. So I think in the SOPA project, it's very conducive to scaling, because, for example, a big hurdle to offering face-to-face food science and culinary medicine education and experience on how to deliver cooking demonstrations, the big barrier to that is the infrastructure and the space that we need to do that. But in our grant, we're investing in developing those teaching spaces and in the equipment and in that physical infrastructure, so that we can put as many students, as we can handle in there and really ramp up. And then the other thing is that in Yuma, and Tanya has more data on this, but when students have more opportunity to face-to-face interaction with instructors and with peers, their programs expand, and they do so pretty consistently. So as programs sort of dip their toe in the water in Yuma and there's not a lot available for the students, the pipeline is not going to see a lot of growth, but typically programs are getting some return back, and that program becomes more financially viable once you hit a certain point. And that's when students start coming into the program more consistently, because they see that there's something for them. So with SOPA, what we're trying to do is invest in making more opportunities and more instruction available, and sort of supplementing that, so that we're not offering it at a loss, with the hope that if the trends are consistent in our program, that then enrollment will increase over these next couple of years, at least enough to sustain the delivery of these courses. And in Yuma, the goal is not for mass revenue generation. That's just not what a small rural campus is intended to do. It's really there to help us carry out our land grant mission and make education accessible to this region. And so anyways, that's how we see our program being sustainable over the long term.
I have 2 points quickly to address your point, Dr. Kielbaugh. One, I think, is the institution recognizing, and we use this term institutionalization. And in my head, I just mean that, to me, that means that the institution actually pays for these successful programs, hands down, instead of all of us writing grants to do so. The second is, I believe faculty, instructors, staff, need to have a space in their job description, in the reward, in the tenure, the continuing status process, where specifically they're getting the credit for the efforts in doing so. Many of us, the work that we do, it goes into what we call service. And when it's a job description and service, I believe the university can change the way it looks at the work that we are all doing for serving and reward it differently.
That's a fantastic idea, Jen. I really love that. That idea of rethinking how this work counts in the evaluation, maybe making servingness its own category.
Thank you, Casey, for such a great question. Melanie, is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up?
I think just my view is connecting to policy as well. You know, food insecurity affects everybody in the United States, not just our students, and we need policy and legislation to support that. And so I'm collecting data to inform that kind of thing, and that's where we're headed with some of our work. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. I am just so immensely grateful to all three of you, not just for presenting today, but for leading all of these efforts across campus. None of this happens individually, right? And I think you within the school, but then also across multiple campuses are showing what we can do in collaboration to really address many of these needs. So thank you, many thanks. And what we'll do is, as we put the link to the webinar on our website on HSI initiatives, we'll also link to the various projects and of course to all of the resources for basic needs and campus pantry that were shared in the chat as well. So thank you all. Our final webinar of the year is going to be on April 14th at 1 p.m. and we will highlight some of the projects that were funded by our HSI Sea grant. So thank you for joining us and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.